All righty. I think we are live. Let's see who all. Let me just see who all do we have on here. I don't see anything, so I don't know what's going on. All right, bear with me one sec. Something is not happening. Can you all hear me? There we go. Alrighty, everybody says they see and hear me, so we are live. Hi, my little droogies. It is time once again for our midnight full moon madness monthly live stream with yours truly, Joe Block, Greyhawk, fun edition, I think, since last time. For those who have looked at the thumbnail for tonight's live stream, we're going to be talking about the Lost Caverns of Tsojcanth and the Forgotten Temple of Tharizdun, just in case we need any topics to talk about. And that noise you hear in the background is the dog whining because my wife is outside and the dog is not with her. So if you hear something like a squeaky wheel, that is it. Hey, Jared, great to see you. So before I get started on our topic du jour, just wanted to see if anybody had any quick questions. Hope you've been enjoying my Armies of Greyhawk series on the blog side. I'm having a blast writing them. And in fact, hey, Carlos, great to see you. In fact, I stocked up on a whole bunch of 15 millimeter medieval figures and some fantasy stuff at Historicon, so I can start actually painting up some armies. And another little thing I've been working on, because I don't have enough to do, is I've put together kind of a fast, quick fantasy battle miniature rule set that works with first edition. And I'm hoping to be able to use that to fight some battles in Greyhawk later on. So we'll see how that goes. Jared has a Dealy Bob. Has an idea for a novel for Silver Wolf. Okay, travels into the Rift Canyon, or the Great Rift, as it is known in other quarters. John, welcome aboard. Will I be selling it? That depends on how it turns out. If it sucks, then no. But I will be including everybody in the whole playtesting process. What I have right now is like an alpha version. I haven't done anything I haven't actually put anything on the table yet. So I've got to do that. All I've done is written down stuff that sounds right. So the first step is to see how this works, and then there'll be lots of tweaking and so forth as we go on. But hopefully that would be the goal. I mean, it's deliberately 4 pages long. I wanted to make something that you could print out on one sheet of tabloid paper and just fold over and have all the rules. The charts and tables would be on another thing, but the rules themselves would only be that 4-page thing. So if I can keep it to that, then it'll probably just be either a free download or it'll be $1 or something. Nothing too amazing. Thunder Jockey, where did I get the map curtain? I got it custom printed at a website called youcustomizeit.com. I believe that's the name of the place. You upload files, you tell them what you want them printed on, and boom, you get them. It was, and it turned out a hell of a lot nicer than I had anticipated. So I'm very pleased with that I found that thing. I've been wanting to block off, because if you'll recall from earlier videos, the dining room behind me is a freaking mess. This is also a mess over here, but this I'm allowed to have as a mess because this is all my miniatures. You can see off to the side here. Those are the TSR AD&D miniatures. All these boxes and bags and stuff are actually minis, and so are the rolly carts underneath. So these are mostly painted. These are not painted. So that'll give you some idea. But yeah, so I think it's youcustomizeit.com. If you Google for that, I think you'll be able to find it. But definitely worth it. Um, so, oh, one more. Many questions, but also, where do you prefer to get my minis? Um, I've been getting minis since I was literally in middle school. So I've got tons of the old Grenadiers and Ralparthas and stuff like that. When it comes to stuff, I usually order either direct from the manufacturer for like wargaming minis, or I will get them from at conventions. Retailers don't really seem to have the minis I want, because I don't like 28 mil figures. I think they're too big, and they just don't look right next to my hordes and hordes of 25 mils. That you wouldn't think 3 centimeters makes a difference, but it really does. When you look at one of the newer Reaper Bones stuff, they look positively massive compared to the old Grenadiers or heaven help you, the Ralparthas. I think they're actually they've blown past 28 at this point. I think they're closer to 30 as the standard nowadays, heroic 28. And they just don't look right. And I've invested way too much stuff in 25 millimeter lead to start over now. So retailers really don't have what I need. And when it comes to historicals, good luck finding a retailer that has anything approaching a decent supply on the wall. So I pretty much have to order them from the manufacturers. Essex, what is it? Fighting 15s, I think, is another one. There's a bunch of them out there. And Jared, yes, this is not only my man cave, but it is also my dual purpose office. So this is where I spend a whole heck of a lot of time. You can't see it, but there's a TV right there. And this machine that you see over here, this is for my regular job. So I have to, this is all, this is my command center. It's where I hang out. Kurt, you're not getting audio. I apologize. Everybody else, are you hearing me okay? I know people are responding to what I'm saying. So Kurt, I think that might be you. Anybody else having trouble hearing me? Okay. Oh, yes, my Malachite throne. Yes. So 1 second. I'm just answering Kurt here. Yeah, the Malachite throne. That's hardly the case. I got this at a restore for $1. My chair. So yay. But I've got some things I wanted to talk about when it comes to the Lost Caverns of Tsojcanth, and there's a lot in here because it's a big module. It's very beloved by a lot of people, and this is actually a module that I've had ever since it first came out, but I never really ran back in the day when I was a callow youth, because it was just kind of too much for me. I used the stuff in the second book, the the one with all the monsters and the spells and everything. This part, I use this all the time until they reprinted it in Monster Manual 2 and Unearthed Arcana. But the module itself, I don't know. I didn't really get it. I didn't like modules that were all caves and caverns and stuff. They were really hard to run, for me. And I've since gotten over that particular phobia, but I still have never actually run the thing. There's a bunch of stuff in here that. And yeah, Jared, I'm going to be recapping some of that, some of those blog posts too. On you're about to hear me recite my own blog posts, so strap in for that exciting bit of news. So one of the things that I still to this day don't get about the Lost Caverns is that they say that this is where Igwil, the Witch Queen, who conquered Perrinland for a decade, this is where she ruled her empire from. And I've got to say, this does not look like a place that you could do that. There's no there's no rooms for that. There's no throne room. There's no prison cells. There's no guard chambers. There's no reception hall. There's none of that stuff that you would think one needs to rule an empire. None of that is in this thing, and there's no doors. There's only one room in the entire dungeon that has doors on it, and you gotta wonder, how do you run an empire without a door? And if you look on the blog, I go into a lot of detail about this, as Jared mentioned, but that just really irked me, that you never really, you don't get the feel that this is some place like that. Now, there are some places that you could put something like that, though, because in the text of the module, there's lots of things that go off the map, right? It's like up here, there's this tunnel that goes like many hundreds of feet that way, and there are sinkholes that go down that they don't tell you about. There's a place in the lower caverns where you can, where it's like a teleport place where you teleport to a bunch of different places, real throne room and the magical laboratory and so forth. So there's that about the thing. One of the other things I really love about this is that there's a really weird holdover from when this was a tournament module, and they talk about for the players, the map is incomplete. The verse says, so there's a place in here, I don't have it bookmarked, unfortunately, but there's a line in here about how there's a nexus with other worlds, right? And that's actually a holdover from the tournament module version of this, because this was originally a hand typewritten tournament module from like 1976 or something. And I actually have a photocopy of it up here, and it says, the Caverns of Tsojcanth are a nexus in probability where several alternate worlds touch. Each of you is aware that numerous parties, such as yours, each containing 6 alternate persons like each of you, will be entering that part of the caverns. And then it goes on. Basically, it's a way of saying that in the first round of the tournament, there are going to be 6 groups, and then one person from each group is going to make it into the second round of the tournament. But it's an in-universe way of justifying that with this alternate worlds thing. And you're aware of your alternate selves, and so it's like a multiverse kind of thing. And somewhere in here, I can't find it, I apologize, there's a line that alludes to that I think just got missed when they were editing the thing. But I always thought that was really neat, that they actually thought out why are we saying that only one person from each team gets to go to the second round? And that's because it's a multiversal nexus, which was always really bizarre. And the idea is you have to get, whoever gets to the second round, whoever finds the way to the bottom level advances. It also says, if you get treasure and kill things and so forth. And that brings me to another thing about the module. And I see there are comments stacking up. I'll get to them in a sec. But there's another aspect of this module that is very, very typically Gygaxian. And that is the fact that in order to get to the greater caverns, which are the lower caverns, you have to find a secret door in the very little corner of the dungeon up here, and there's no real clue that it's there. It's just kind of in a loop thing. But if you don't find this the secret door, you can't get to the greater caverns. That's and it's like, that's the kind of thing that drives newer DMs and people who are used to newer editions just crazy, is that you're leaving the story hanging on the outcome of a die roll, because if they blow the die roll, then they can't finish the dungeon, when in fact that's kind of the point. Isn't that there is a story that needs to be completed. It's an exploration module that happens to have a plot tacked onto it so that you have a justification for going on the exploration. But that's a very typical Gygaxian thing that you see over and over and over in a lot of his designs. And in fact, if we get to talking about the Forgotten Temple, we'll talk about that there too. All right, I'm going to shut up now and start looking at some things. Carlos ran it last Christmas, souped it up. Yeah, I know. Who else did that? Grow Dog. Alan Growy also, I believe, has something on his blog where he's started to map out the rest of the caverns and stuff, which is really cool. You have to do. I mean, it's immense. There's all these things everywhere, and you only get like the little central core part of the dungeon in the module. Carlos got to create space and exaggerate the vertical distances. Yep. Dungeon Magazine 151. Oh, Joe, thank you so much, Joe. I really appreciate the top chat thing with the little $signy thing. Thank you so much, Joe. It really does help. I have actually become quite dependent on the income I make from not only the videos but the Patreon and everything. We're really using it to pay a lot of bills in the house, and it really does help. So thank you, Joe. It was very thoughtful of you. I really appreciate it. Oh yes, and you're playing a paladin and the cleric of Hyronius. Excellent. Well, with elemental evil, yes, that's one of my that's one of my two favorites up there. So alrighty. So Carlos, Dungeon Magazine 151. Yeah. And I know in Dragon they also did that whole Demonomicon of Igwilv series, which I really need to just sit. I've read them, but I need to sit down and focus and pick them apart and find out all the connections and everything that's in there. And Jared, yes, the references to Ayuz and Voluna and Ket, absolutely. And in fact, that's something else I want to touch on tonight. That good aligned countries are, well, that's the thing. Ket really isn't a good aligned country. I think if you look in that map they have of the alignments, I think it actually comes out as an evil country. But you're right, is that good nations can still be rivals, and that's something that's really lost upon a lot of people. They naturally think, oh yeah, well, Ernst and Nyrond are right next to each other. They're both good, so they must be allies. Not necessarily. Same thing with the two Ernst states. They have a lot of competition between them. Jared, well, it's fairly easy to get to, but I mean, finding it, you still have to make that die roll, right? There's no guarantee that you're going to find it. So there really is that idea that you might just miss it. And plus, it's tucked away in the corner of the dungeon. You might not get there ever. So it's just really bizarre. John, I'm going to ask that we not talk about that, only because I have exactly the same thing for free on my blog, and well, not exactly the same thing, but I have a lot of the same sort of stuff, and I really don't want to get into a comparison of what I've done with Greyhawk 5th edition with what they've done with 5th edition. I acknowledge it, but I don't want to critique it, if that makes sense. So if you don't mind, I would I just want to steer clear of possibly choppy waters. But one of the things, speaking of the connections to Ayuz in the module, is that the timelines that they talk about in here, with the establishment of Igwilv's empire in Perrinland and Ayuz rising to power northeast of the Vesve Forest, the timing of that really works out really well. And even the timeline that they give in the much later module, Ayuz the Evil, plugs perfectly into this idea that Ayuz was building his empire at exactly the same time Igwilv was. So during the time Igwilv's in Perrinland, Ayuz is in his realm, gobbling up little tiny lordlets. But as soon as Igwilv is overthrown in Perrinland, Ayuz stops expanding. And that all happens in I believe it's 490 common year, and I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that there's some connection between the rise of Ayuz in his land and what later became the Horn Society, in which he later reconquered, and Igwil's realm in Perrinland and in the Yaddle Mountains. I think that the she was helping him in his rise because obviously Ayuz is her son. And I think later on, when we get in this module, we get the idea that Ayuz is one of the powers who has sent an expedition to find the Lost Caverns, which is where all of Igwil's magical artifacts and stuff are stored with his stepsister Drelsna. I think that tells you that there was something going on, that Igwil had something that Ayuz was using, and I think it's the Lanthorn. And I know in the module, the Lanthorn has very specific, this lens does this lens does that. But I think there's also a whole big thing of gems and so forth. And I think it's admittedly a stretch on my part, but I think she was conducting research, finding new lenses that would work in the Lanthorn. And I think that's what Ayuz was going there to get, that was sending his minions out to get. Because that timing of the two rises, and as soon as she is overthrown, he stops. I think that's too much of a coincidence. So let's see what else is going on here. There's no reference. It says the rocks look suspicious. Well, okay, Jared, I believe you. Okay, congratulations, you win. I still think it's kind of a long shot to find it, but you're still going to need a die roll because it's a secret door. I mean, unless I'm missing something on the map, yeah, that's my eyes. Looks like a secret door. I don't know. I'd have to read it. But even so, even if there's no, even if all you have to do is turn the suspicious rock, I think it is tucked away in a relatively remote section of the thing. You have to swim upstream of the river in the one place, or downstream, and then know when to jump off. It's definitely not something that's easily accessible. If the PCs are going to, say they're, that river really does do a number on you, because the river's going this way and then it comes out that way. And so you could, if you wanted to, you could go in the river there, swim upstream this, and then get up boats. You have to be quick enough thinking to, as soon as you see that stone bridge, that's where I jump off. It's not going to be easy to find. Even the secret door itself is relatively easy. So anyway, let's see. So other stuff on here. I got that. So legends. Right. That's the other thing. So this is the wilderness map, right? And which number is it? So bear with me 1 second. I'm looking something up so I don't misspeak, lest Jared jump upon me. I'm teasing. I am teasing. The ogre. There we go. The ding. The caverns. Yeah. So this is the wilderness map, right? So thank you so much, Shane. It is very, very much appreciated. Excellent. Thank you so much. So this is the wilderness map, right? So there are literally a limited number of options. There's literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 places that the Lost Caverns could be, because that's where the trails lead. And how could it possibly be lost is my question. How could people have forgotten? I mean, she ruled over the entire empire of Perrinland for a decade, and presumably people were, bringing tribute and gold and prisoners and what have you. Embassies were being sent there, and now a mere, let's see, 490, a mere 60 years later, 80 years later, nobody knows where it is. That doesn't sound right to me. That it's like saying, people forgot where Berlin is, until this year, after World War II. It doesn't make a lot of sense that you would just lose the entire capital of an evil empire like that, especially when you have demi-humans who would have still been alive back then. I mean, and in theory, there are people, humans, who could have been alive back then, and still be alive now. But like gnomes, who are actually in the module, there's lots of gnomes there, or dwarves. There are quite a few of them who would know exactly where the Lost Caverns are, because they would have lived through her occupation. So how it remains lost is not very apparent to me. Exactly, Cutterjacky. The gnomes would have gone. The gnomes would have known exactly where they are. So that whole thing, I think there might have been, if they had put in something about it was, shaded by illusion that is now worn off or something, they could have figured out an in-universe way for the caverns to all of a sudden be reachable again. Or maybe there was an earthquake that has uncovered something, or who knows, but there's ways they could have done it. But the idea that just everybody forgot, just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So anywho, those are a few of my thoughts. As has been mentioned, there are a few blog posts. Just go to the blog and search for Tsojcanth, and you'll find them. And there's another module, obviously, that's very tied in to the Lost Caverns, and that is the Forgotten Temple of Tharizdun. And it's tied in because this is kind of situated in the same wilderness area that the Lost Caverns are, right? So it's tied in there, in this absolutely difficult to read map. I mean, this thing is just yikes. There are numbers in there, but good luck with my old eyes trying to find them. But when you get into it, you've got the temple that's in the mountains. Then you've got the inner thing here, and this is another situation where the good stuff, the really cool stuff in the actual Under Temple, is enormously difficult to find, because in order to get to it, where is it? You need to go to another one of these weird secret underdoor things, that's hidden around, and that takes you to the staircase that leads you to the dungeon level. And otherwise, you can come away, you could go into this ginormous battle with all of the humanoids and stuff like that, and then come out of there and say, oh yes, we beat the module, we did all this, we killed all these humanoids and ogres and giants or whatever, and then just leave all the good stuff. And one of the biggest superstitions I like that. I love that sort of little folklory the bits, Jared, about saying always say dread in front of Tharizdun's name. And in fact, in the novels, if I recall correctly, you weren't even supposed to say his name at all. Chris, your headcanon is she used the caverns as the home base. Yeah, that kind of maps with my idea that she uses that teleporter, because they only detail a couple of the possible teleport locations. So one of them could just be, the real palace on some demiplane or whatever. That would actually be, now that I think about it, that would actually be really cool to do the demiplane of the Witch Queen or something like that. If only I had done a trilogy of modules that led up to dealing with witches in the vicinity. If only. The Dark Lord. So one of the things I love about this, and this is a module. It's credited to Gary Gygax, but Gary in his, I think it's in the introduction or somewhere, he calls out Rob Kuntz as a big influence on it, and it's one of the things that about this module. Once you get down into that under temple, and you're dealing with the the places where the priests of Tharizdun went, the module compels you to start acting like the priests. And this starts up top. There's a statue, and this is actually a pic. A lot of people just think this is some weird watercolor abstract art thing. This is a statue that actually appears in the module. It's very difficult to pick up on because they don't really say see the cover image or whatever. But the faceless thing with the tentacles, there's it appears there in the module, and you touch the thing, and then all of a sudden you start to hear Tharizdun, and when you get into the Undertemple, what the module does is it corrupts you, and it doesn't corrupt you in an ordinary sense. It's almost like the D&D equivalent of body horror, right? Where, something absolutely horrible happens to your physical body in a movie or whatever. I'm not a big fan of that in movies, but I can't get away from it. This is kind of analogous to that. I call it character horror, because in order to reach the end of the module where all the good, fun, spooky stuff is, your characters have to start acting like the villains. They have to put on the robes to avoid the chilling cold of the temple. They have to light the incense balls in the thing. They have to do all of these things that eventually they're indistinguishable from the priests of Tharizdun themselves. I love that. It's subversive in the best possible way a D&D module can be, and I think that is where you're seeing Rob Kuntz's influence coming through in the design of this, because a lot of some of his other things that have been published, have that same kind of idea, where that you as a player have to decide to make horrible choices for your characters in order to proceed, and I love that. It's just it's like torture in a good way, because it's part of the game. I love that idea about this. All right, I'm going to start catching up here. The G&D modules and the temple, the talent of giving the eerie feeling of dread. Absolutely. You see that the start of that is in G1, in that weird abandoned temple, which is like the half rubble choked temple of the elder elemental god, but they don't say so in the module. You have to wait later on to find out what the heck it is. But you're right. That's exactly the kind of atmosphere that he can do really well. And it's also one of the things that means that a DM really has to read a Gygaxian module carefully to be able to pick up on all this stuff. I mean, look what happened with Q1. There were all kinds of details about the inner politics of the Drow and what was going on and everything, and that just got blown away when other people decided to write the end module for that whole series. So Gygax's stuff, especially the early stuff, really rewards a careful reading. And that's kind of what my whole blog is based on. So, yay. Go figure, I think so. Yes, exactly. So, so those are some of my thoughts on. I've never, I know why they included this in the same wilderness area as Tsojcanth, because the one had just come out not too long ago. They wanted to kind of tie things together. Thinking because this was very popular. It's my understanding it sold pretty well because of all the extra monsters and everything. So I think they might have wanted to glom onto it. Say, oh, if a lot of people bought that, they'll buy this because they'll think it's connected. Even though it's thematically connected, but it's not really. What are you doing? This is Louisiana, by the way, making all the noise. Caterwauling, if I might make so bold. Yes. Yes, I know. I go off into. Yes, go explore the hell furnaces. That's right. So anyway, those are a few of my thoughts on the modules. I think I have a greater appreciation for them nowadays than I did at the time. Although, as I say, I still think S4 has some glaring flaws that really need the DM to expand it out a great deal in order to really get the full impact of it. And those opportunities aren't really spelled out. Like in the beginning of D3, there's a paragraph in Vault of the Drow that says this module really requires the dungeon master to do a lot of work, expand stuff out, that kind of thing. You don't really get that with S4, even though it's just as true. So, anywho. Alrighty. So, that having been said, excuse me. I become parched with all this jibber jabbing. Let's see. So, let's open chat at this point. Unless if we want to keep talking about these guys, that's fine. If anybody has anything they want to bring up, now's the time. Let's have a ball. None of your editorializing, Arya. The dog is moaning at the prospect. Doing the work exactly. And one of the things I do like about S4 is that it is so tied to the setting. This is a perfect example of expanding the setting in such with an actual module rather than just putting out a source book, because this a source book is kind of kind of just tells you what's going on. When you tie that kind of background to the module and give it and make it relevant to the motive for the PCs going into the dungeon, I think that gives that kind of background a lot more vibrancy than you would get by just doing an info dump in something like I Use the Evil or the Marklands or something like that, which are fine as far as they go in and of themselves. But I think if we had a series of modules that gave us that same information just over the course of say 3 or 4 adventures, I think it would have had a bigger impact, because you would have gotten it would have shown, not just told. But that's Monday morning quarterbacking 30 years after the fact. So Lendor Isle. Oh yes. I should actually do a whole thing on Lendor Isle. Just real quick off the top of my head, I'm sorry for Devil Spawn. I apologize for the editing on Devil Spawn. But the whole idea was Gygax was going to expand out the world of Greyhawk by giving other people bits and pieces of it, right? And Len Lakofka was going to have the islands down in the corner. Francois Froidal, I apologize on butchering the name. He was going to have his own piece across the Solnor Ocean that eventually got turned into the Empire of Lyn, which we saw in the Dragon Annual 1 map, and which was featured in a series of graphic novels. So that whole campaign setting information still got used by him. So there so the idea was they were going to expand out the Oerth with all these different campaign settings. And I love the idea that there's just this self-contained group of islands down in the corner in the Spindrifts, in Lindor Island, that, is just this, you could set an entire campaign there because it's been done. The modules, obviously Len is a terrific author, a terrific writer. They're very, very good. I actually like Assassin's Knot is my favorite of the bunch. Although I do have Deep Dwarven Delve. I've never run it, but we've run L1 and L2, Bone Hill and Assassin's Knot. I ran those back in the day, so they're always a lot of fun. Let's see now, but I do want to do a series on them. Maybe even get do an interview or something if that would be possible. Cutter Jockey, what do I think of the modern version of Tharizdun as the big bad evil god of the D&D multiverse? I hate it. I don't want to see Tharizdun lurking behind every tree. I don't think Tharizdun needs to be, the real Elder Elemental God. I think that was a cop-out. I think that was terrible. I don't think he needs to be everywhere. It made sense for Tharizdun to be the big bad evil guy at the end of the Gord the Rogue novels, because that's just the trajectory that they were going in from the second novel, from Artifact of Evil. That was the story. And of course, originally Gord was going to vanquish Tharizdun, but because of all the stuff that happened with TSR and personalities, the Gygax took it in a different direction. So it made sense there, but I don't like the idea that he's everywhere. Same thing with Vecna being everywhere. And we had this spate of modules in the 90s where just Vecna was every other villain. It was terrible. But no, I don't think you need to have one big bad evil guy. If you want to do that, you have one built in with Asmodeus. So anyway, so that is my lengthy answer to your simple question. Reading through my Rift module. Yes, Carlos, indeed. In fact, I just ordered the proof of R2 yesterday. So that will be the November adventure that will be coming out. And there will be a third, an R3. I haven't started it yet, but I know exactly what it's going to be, and it's going to be great. The series, and thank you very much for your kind words about it, by the way. I saw another review which was not nearly so kind online. But yes, there will definitely be more there. The next one is called Beneath the Great Rift, and that will give you some idea of where things go. Let us see, Jared. Bone Hill was a lot better. Assassin's Knot, it looks like, yeah. I don't know. For whatever reason, I guess I just preferred it. I mean, I think they're both great. But given a choice, I liked the Assassin's Knot one a little bit better. Grant, welcome aboard. The Oliver brothers, that Great Flaness River thing. Yeah, I remember they were sending it to me at the time. I remember it got a little much for me. I will be very honest, but the stuff, until I kind of got distracted by other things, I was really liking what I saw. That Great Flaness River adventure is a great idea. and I thought they did a terrific job with it. John, no. As far as I'm aware, there are no connections to Igwilv and Ayuz. Tharizdun, he doesn't, as far as I'm aware, there's no real origin story other than he was a big evil deity who was about as powerful as all the other deities put together. It's a little bit different if you go with the Gygax version of Tharizdun from the novels versus the published TSR/Wizards version. But I think the general gist of it is big bad evil god, all the other gods got together and imprisoned him because he was just too powerful. As far as his actual origin, I'm not sure. It's very possible they laid out a nauseatingly complete timeline of him in one of those 3 or 4 splat books. And yeah, Jared, exactly. You don't having a villain for a couple of things is fine. Like Eclavdra is a great villain. You know, she's in the Giants, she's in the Drow, and then she that's about done with her. And then she pops up again in Ayuz the Evil as an ambassador. She's not really the big bad evil guy, but she's still around. So that gives continuity. But you're right. I prefer to have villains that are much more limited in scope, if that makes sense. We don't need to have the Scarlet Brotherhood is another perfect example of this. We don't need to have the Scarlet Brotherhood behind everything. We don't need to have them. Every plot in the Floness seems to have a Scarlet Brother somewhere in the vicinity of it. And I think that cheapens it. If they're everywhere, it's like you always know who's going to be under the mask when Freddy takes it off at the end of the Scooby-Doo episode. It's always going to be a brother in a red robe with silver hair. John, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. The hitting the little $ thing really does help. I can't thank you enough for your generosity. Oh, John, yes. Strawpoll, is Igwilv the same as Tasha? I think that's canon, but I don't like it personally. I see the need for it, but I think they did make that canon in something or other. Juan, hello. She's trying the. You're trying my T0. Oh, thank you so much. Not using the temple part. Yes, that is what I did for a long time. Back in the day when we didn't have Temple of Elemental Evil, we just had Village of Hamlet as a module, and I ran that like 5 times just on its own. It is a great module. You got the village, you've got the moat house, and you don't need to go any further. I have heard of people using, that sample dungeon in the DM's guide. I've heard of people expanding that out and making that the Temple of Elemental Evil. I know that parts of the published temple were done using random dungeon generation, so you could actually have a blast with that and just make a random one. As far as another big bad evil temple, you could go through Judges Guild, and they have that Temple of Set. You might be able to do something with that, or the Temple of Ra, Accursed by Set, might work too. And more Great Rift modules, and maybe Stoink. Well, Stoink is an interesting issue because I was actually going to do a version of Stoink. I had it all mapped out in my mind. I had done some preliminary work on my Stoink, which I would call Hornet's Nest. And then I discovered that in one of the when they were a couple of years ago, they were cataloging all of Gary's papers from the big storage unit, and they were taking archival level photographs and selling off some stuff, and they were doing the all that stuff. And it turns out that Gary's version of Stoink exists. So I am not inclined to step on Gary's stuff that way if there's a possibility it's ever going to come out. When I did my Castle of Mad Archmage, there was no hope, and frankly, there still remains no hope that it's ever going to come out. But knowing that he had made his stoink and that it still existed, because he had said long ago that the papers were lost, and that turned out to be inaccurate. But knowing that it does exist, and it's complete and it's there and essentially publishable with a little work, I'm not inclined to do that. I might find another city to do that with. There's a couple of other cities that might suit in that respect. Dunstrand is a possibility. Rail Astra could work. There's a few places here and there that would the same treatment that I was thinking of might really do well. But that's why I backed off of Stoink. Is as soon as I heard yes, yes, we have it, I kind of said I don't want to do that. All right, let's see. Yes, Cutter Jockey, I do remember that now that you mention it. The elder element of God being involved in the temple makes sense, given that it's not yet. Who are the elemental evil clerics? That is yes. It could be that they're being that their spells are being provided by Zuktmoy or Ayuz, and they just don't realize it. It could also be that they are sincerely tapping into something with the elder elemental god. But yeah, the source of their spells is a little weird. Personally, I think it's Zuktmoy giving them the spells from her prison in the interdicted prison of Zuktmoy, and just pretending that it's something else. Ayuz could do the exact same thing as well, but they don't really spell it out, and it's annoying. John, I just saw Eric Mona on Lord Gazumba's channel. I'm going to have to watch that then. Saying that he never found Gary. Right, correct. This was there was a storage locker that Gary had of papers and boxes and things like that that they went through several years ago. It wasn't this is all stuff he had taken away with him when he left TSR. And it was all archived and cataloged and all that other good stuff. And this was one of them. It wasn't at Wizards, so that is correct. City of Blue. A fun little fact I have about the City of Blue. You'll also notice that across the Sea of Garnat, there's a town in Nairon called Old Red, and in my head, the town of Blue and the town of Old Red are old rivals, and they have naval battles every year, one with blue sails and one with red sails. And in my head, Gary did that on purpose so he could have little naval battles. But I know that now. I know that's just me making it up, but I want it to be true. Eclavdra is not a follower of Lolth. Well, she was a follower of Lolth. Then she was a follower of the elder elemental god. Then she was, depending on how you look at it, she was either a cleric of Grast in the Gord the Rogue novels, or she went back to being a cleric of Lolth if you look at Ayuz the Evil, the module. So that's where that character kind of diverges. The two roads diverge in the forest if you're looking at Gary's treatment as opposed to the TSR published treatment. So I personally like the idea that she went from Lolth to the Elder Element of God to Grast back to Lolth. So I actually would fit them all in together. But that might be a needless complication on my part. Jared, the issue inspired me to say that clerics could grant spells by worshiping abstract concepts. Well, that brings up the interesting question of where do druids get their spells from? They must get them from do they get them from nature, quote unquote, or do they get them from gods? Because at least in the gold box set, we know that there are druids who worship deities like Elona and Obad High. So, is it a mix? Are there some druids who don't worship gods, or do they all worship? It's really not clear, which is fine because it leaves it up to the DM, and I like that. August 11th. That was tonight. Was August 11th. I thought their thing was the other night, but okay, I'll look for that, John. Thank you for pointing it out. Yeah, I know the Eclavdra going back to Lowell thing doesn't make a lot of sense to me either, especially if she bounced around a little more after going to the Elder Elemental God. But that's what they say in the book. So, it on one level, that's the canon. I think it's a little out of character for Lolth to be able to do that, but that's just me. Although I did get a kick out of the fact that when they did their 5th edition version of Hall of the Fire Giant King, wherein Eclavdra absolutely is not a cleric of Lowell. She is a cleric of the Elder Elemental God. That's the whole point of the module. In the stat block they give for Eclavdra, she's Priestess of Lolth, which is one problem I have with having those fluff specific things being tied to specific monster types. Like Drow priestesses are always Priestesses of Lolth, period, the end. I don't like that. But nothing says that you can't make your own 5e Drow Priestess of Elder Elemental God. I certainly would if I was running a long campaign. And in fact, I might have, now that I think about it. But that's like I say, that's kind of veering into other territory. Jared, I wish Greyhawk had a moon deity. Yeah, it would saloon. There's, I know I included a moon deity in my Backloonish pantheon, and I'm trying to remember. There was something I noticed when I was looking at it, and I'm looking through the book even as we speak. Yeah, no, I don't remember what I was thinking of, but yeah, I purposefully included 2 moon deities, I think, in my Backloonish pantheon that I did on the blog, and published 11. Oh, the Twitch was yesterday. Today's that makes sense. So Jared, yeah, exactly. Who would bring a priestess who had betrayed you and tried to overthrow you and tried to get others to assassinate you? Who would let them back into their service as a important person? Like I say, doesn't make a lot of sense to me. We are heading into the 8 o'clock hour here, which means it's almost time for me to log off so I can go make dinner. Let's wrap this up. You have anything else? Now's the time. Let's see. Any other questions, comments, anything you want to say? Anyone else want to hit that little dollar, that little dollar sign thing and throw me something in the tip jar? I'm kidding about that, but obviously it's more than welcome. But speaking of gods, Cutter Jockey, why did the Sul have not 1 but 2 sea gods when they were an inland empire? That is an excellent question. And one of the possibilities, of course, is that their empire did extend past the mountains from the Hell Furnaces, onto Joliet Bay or something like that. But yeah, there's another. I want to say there was some fan-made thing that said they had an inland sea that was destroyed in the Reign of Colorless Fire. I might be mistaking that. Oh, thank you, Jared. I appreciate it, as always. Carlos, let's see. One last question. Do I ever go to North Texas, and will I do GaryCon? I have not yet done North Texas. I want to. It's a little bit too far for me to drive is the problem. And if I'm vending at a con, I really need to drive because shipping all that stuff for the booth and then shipping it back would kill any kind of profit I might have. But it's just outside my range of being able to drive myself in a single shot. I can drive to GaryCon. It's 13 hours, but I can do it. As for GaryCon next year, that is the plan, but plans will oft go awry, so we'll see. But yes, I am expecting to go to GaryCon. I will be, for sure, I'll be at ShireCon next month, and I'm also planning on going to TotalCon up in Massachusetts in January, I think it is. So I will be there as well. And I will also be at Mepicon, which is in Northeast Pennsylvania. I will be vending there as well. But who else we got here? Did anybody use WG5? John, like I say, I've not used WG5 at all. Considering the number of places Tharizdun keeps popping up, you don't really need it to introduce him. You just look under your bed and Tharizdun will be there. Let's see. Last question. Do I use Igwilv and Tharizdun? I don't really use Tharizdun, but I use Igwilv a lot. I love the idea of the Witch Queen. And my Igwilv is heavily dependent on the presentation that Gary had in the Gord the Rogue novels, where she becomes domineering over Ayus. I love that kind of stuff. So yeah, I personally absolutely use Igwilv a ton in my campaigns. So, hey Ovaltine Patrol, you caught us just as we are wrapping up. I'm sorry to say. Anyone else got anything before I call an end to it? Going once, going twice. All righty. Well, thank you all so much for coming with me this time around. I really appreciate it. Thanks to everybody who hit that little $sign. It really does help. I will have, of course, more stuff coming out as soon as I can. Continuing with the Armies of Greyhawk. As mentioned at the beginning, I will also have that quick fantasy battle miniatures game. I'll hopefully be painting up some armies to do some play testing with it. I actually have a really cool idea for it so that you won't need miniatures, but I got to see if I can make that work. And of course, there will be regular blog posts. There will be regular YouTube things and the quarterly dungeons. And of course, I forgot to mention the Cthulhu book is going to be coming out within the month, assuming everything goes right with this new book that I ordered, the new proof. So anyway, thanks again to everybody who showed up. Really appreciate it. And I will see you again next month. Have a great time. And I've had a blast. I hope you have too. Bye-bye.